title of our next presentation is Big Pharma, Big Greed, Why the Pharmaceutical Industry is Responsible for America's Opioid Crisis. Please welcome Hunter Gillman.
The manufacturer, the consumer, the producer, and the purchaser. When I was younger, I always perceived this to be a simple relationship. The manufacturers had the ability to produce something that the public wanted, and subsequently, the public went out and bought it. However, as I grew older, I saw how money could ruin such a simple relationship. When large sums of money are introduced, it becomes less about the quality of the product and advancing human well-being, and more about maximizing the profits. This has been demonstrated by the pharmaceutical industry in that big pharma companies have prioritized profits above all else. There is no doubt whether America is suffering from an opioid crisis, but the question is who is to blame. While neither the pharmaceutical companies nor the consumers are completely innocent, I argue that one of these parties is more culpable than the other in this current crisis. Corruption in the pharmaceutical industry has always been prevalent. It has been common practice for drug companies to over-exaggerate or deceive the consumer in order to make a profit off of them. One such example was Purdue Pharma, the manufacturer and creator of OxyContin, an opioid-based drug that stops pain signals from traveling along the nerves of the brain. Because OxyContin was so effective, it became high in demand and was being marketed as a, quote, miracle cure. However, what wasn't being disclosed about this miracle cure was the fact that oxycodone, the main proponent behind OxyContin, was a highly addictive narcotic that should only be used in cases of severe pain. Instead, the drug was being overly prescribed and used as a general painkiller. This was done strategically by Purdue in order to get patients addicted and to ultimately drive their profits. All Purdue employees were told that their main priority was to, quote, sell OxyContin. Purdue's disingenuous marketing strategy was used on several other drugs to bring the founding family's net worth to a total of $13 billion. In addition to getting patients addicted to their product, another technique used by big pharma companies to generate profits is incentivizing local doctors and physicians to push their product and thus make more money for themselves. One such example of this was at the Save Right Pharmacy in West Virginia, where a local physician named Jim Woolley readily prescribed drugs that were known to be highly addictive to local residents so that he could make money off of them. One day, one of Woolley's customers named William Priest wanted to switch to a stronger painkiller, to which Woolley readily prescribed him the stronger drug. There was no diagnosis of an ailment or worsening of a condition that justified the stronger painkiller. Woolley simply responded by telling him to, quote, not take the immediate and extended release at the same time, and don't chew on the OxyContin. Woolley didn't really care what Priest was to do with the drug, and didn't think twice about giving a clearly practicing addict a stronger painkiller. Sadly, William Priest ended up dying of a drug overdose. Woolley's main focus were the few extra dollars that were to be pocketed from the exchange, rather than the care for a human life. Unfortunately, this type of behavior from physicians has been encouraged by the pharmaceutical industry because it supports their profit at all costs motif. Many may argue that organizations such as the DEA and FDA are the cause of such behavior because of lack of enforcement of their laws and guidelines. However, this statement is misguided because there are always going to be ways to get around the rules. Ultimately, it's the corporation choosing to profit off another man's downfall, which is never the right choice, rules or no rules. This is the type of behavior that has led the pharmaceutical industry down a dark path. This is the type of behavior that has become commonplace in the industry and still haunts America to this day. But couldn't the opioid crisis actually be the fault for the consumer? After all, it is the consumer deciding to put potentially addictive drugs into his or her own body, so they should be responsible for the consequences that come afterwards. While this is a very plausible claim, it is ultimately false because, in reality, a person's decision-making is heavily influenced by the world around them. It's incredibly easy for advertisements or opinions to greatly sway a person's thoughts and feelings about a topic. And this is especially important to remember because most prescription drug advertisements are, according to Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Eric Iyer, irrationally favorable to the drug industry. In a study conducted by researchers at Dartmouth College concerning drug companies' advertisements in TV commercials, it was found that 60% of prescription drug ads and 80% of over-the-counter drug ads were false or misleading. These advertisements are designed to manipulate the consumer into viewing all prescription drugs as a safe and reliable way of ridding people of their ailments. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, even to this day, major pharmaceuticals are being exposed for withholding information about their products' dangers, misrepresenting them as safer alternatives to other forms of pain relief. I would further argue that once a consumer is addicted, his or her ability to make rational decisions is heavily impaired, creating a vicious cycle that heavily favors the profit-making of the pharmaceutical companies. Ultimately, as Christians, it is our responsibility to offer support to those who are suffering and show them the right way to deal with pain in their lives. We need to help those who have been affected by teaching them to look to God and Scripture rather than pills when they're going through a tough time in their life. We need to bring organizations such as His Way Recovery and Dream Center, which offer Christian faith-based drug rehabilitation programs, to light and encourage those in need of help to give these programs a try. Together, as a community, we can work towards a cure to the opioid-ridden sickness that has plagued America for years. Together, we can provide a more hopeful future for America's upcoming generations and put an end to the pharmaceutical industry's mass manipulation and deceit. Thank you.